Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the conversation. I'm your host, Roxanne Grace. Guys, today we are talking to Andy Byrd, and we have a special co-host guest. You don't want to miss it. So sit back, relax, and get ready for this conversation. As always promised, I will bring my guest in just a few minutes. But first, I want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to our channel. Check out our social profiles at Dream Label Group. Check out our website, dreamlabelgroup.com. There you will find a mailing list. And if you join that mailing list, you will be some of the first to hear music from Dream and receive updates about our awesome show. Also, guys, we want to welcome all of our podcast listeners. Welcome, everybody. We are so stoked to have you. If you don't already know, on our website, you can find a link to subscribe to our podcast. We are pretty much everywhere. You can find us at iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and so many more. Go check that out. Also, guys, on our website, we have merchandise. We have lots of stuff up there, really cool stuff. I know we're going to be adding to it in the new year. And don't forget that for the rest of December, you can get the Dream Christmas Volume 5 album for 50% off. You don't want to miss the opportunity. I love this album. After Kenny G Christmas, of course, this is my favorite album. So make sure you guys get your hands on that. All right, guys, seeing how this is our last episode for 2020, I thought it'd be a really cool idea to invite a friend to co-host with me. So I asked a good friend of mine, Chloe Evans. She is also an artist on our label, on Dream Label Group. She's part of the band Futures from Influencers Church. She's so much fun, and she has the raddest accent. So let's go ahead and bring Chloe in right now. What's up, girl?
How are you? What an introduction.
I know, right? I know, right? Oh, and I should have mentioned too to our audience that Chloe has also been a guest on the conversation. You were on our Dream Christmas special, and we had an amazing conversation episode with you and your brother-in-law, Mark Evans. It was a blast. It was actually one of my favorite episodes to film. So that was a lot of fun. How's your day going?
My day is a little hectic, but good. I have a 15-month-old, so that just keeps you on my toes amidst a million other things, but it's a good and fun time of life. So
it really is. It really is. And we're getting so close to Christmas. I'm so excited. I feel like I'm just as excited as my kids. Like, girl,
more.
I know. I remember you told me before that you absolutely love Christmas and you become like a child. So we can totally relate on that. So you know that we have a special guest today, a man that is just literally like he's given his whole life for revival. And this is so exciting for me. And I know you and I were talking about this yesterday, that it's exciting for both of us because both of us have a stirring for what God is doing right now in this time. Like, I don't know about you, girl, but since I was a kid, like I've had a fire in my bones for revival. This is probably something you don't really know about me, but even when I was a little kid, about 7 years old, I used to make my own tracks. Do you know what tracks are?
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if they say tracks in Australia, but this is kind of aging me too. People can kind of figure out how old I am when I use the term tracks. I don't even know if it's a thing anymore, but basically tracks is like these like pamphlets. Sometimes they're like pamphlet style.
Oh, tracks. Yes.
Yes. Tracks. Okay, good. So when I was a kid, I used to make my own tracks and I would evangelize my neighborhood. You know, I used to say to my mom, like, can we put our phone number on here in case people want to accept Jesus? You know, she's like, no, you know. And then I remember I used to go to school early and my teachers were so awesome because they would let me into the school early and I would put my homemade tracks into the kids' desk, you know, and it would be like, you know, like John 3:16, like the sinner's prayer. I think I'm like 7. I'm writing this out, right? And then I remember there's this one guy I had a massive crush on in grade 3. And I remember on his track, I put a candy and it was like, P.S. you're hot, you know? No, I didn't actually say that, but I wanted to, but I did put a candy on his track. But you know what, girl? All that to say is this, I'm so stoked for our guest today because he is like involved in reaching the masses for our King. What about you?
No, totally. I love that. I think we are both cut from the same cloth in a funny way because I'm the same. I was saved when I was 13.
Mm.
And ever since then, it's just, I think when you really truly understand who Jesus is and what he's done for you, you can't help. You cannot help. It's an overflow. And so I totally understand. I would go to school early, had prayer meetings with, just 5 other really like-minded Christians. I started chapel services in my school, and, we'd do the little slideshow. And I've had tracks as well. Now that I know what you're talking about, I got some from youth camp, and I've done the same thing. It's so funny. So, but, even now, like a few weeks ago, I just put little gifts in my neighbors' letterboxes, and I invited them all out just for a kind of a get together that was safe for 2020 in our little cul-de-sac on our street. And we just all brought food and we chatted and just trying to organically create relationship to do that, because I think that revival is in every little moment that we're actually open and willing to be used by God. It doesn't necessarily happen in a massive thing, but it's in us being present with what Holy Spirit's doing right now. So from what I've been hearing about our incredible guest, I'm so excited to hear from him.
So let's not waste any time then. Let's go ahead and bring him in. So for those of you that don't know, our special guest today is Andy Byrd. And a little bit about Andy. Andy has dedicated his life to spiritual awakening in the nations and to this generation. Andy is part of the leadership of University of the Nations. He's been with YWAM for 21 years. He's based out of Kona. He and his wife helped pioneer fire and fragrance ministries, circuit riders movements, and the Send. So we know he's obviously crazy busy. Not to mention, he is a massive advocate for fostering, adoption, just family. And he and his wife have 6 beautiful children of their own. So let's go ahead and bring in the superhero right now, none other than Andy Byrd. What's up, brother?
Hey, how are you guys today?
We are doing great. How are you doing?
So good, so good. Pumped for this this time together, and just excited.
Yeah, we are too. We're very excited. We were just talking about how excited we are about this conversation. Andy, as I just told our entire audience how crazy busy your schedule is, we really appreciate you taking time out for this conversation. So,
such an honor.
We only have about a half an hour together, and there's so much that we can dive into. So let's kind of just dive into it right now. As I mentioned in the intro, you and your beautiful wife, Holly, are huge advocates for family, for fostering and adoption. Want to maybe tell us a little bit about that, maybe how God did that work in your heart? And I know you guys have a huge family. What was the plan there? Did you guys always plan to have a huge family?
No, that was definitely not part of the plan. I was definitely 2 kids was kind of my maximum. And we travel a lot. We've traveled our whole lives. We've been, with Youth with a Mission for the last 20 some years.
Wow.
And early on when we started and we're traveling all over the place, I thought, gosh, 2 kids is perfect. We could still play man-to-man defense. You get one, I get one. And my wife had other ideas, and she definitely prevailed on me on that one. And so when we had our 3rd kid, it kind of broke the bottleneck, and it was sort of like, I kind of feel like, I don't know how many children you guys might have, but when you have 3 and you're forced into zone defense, you sort of you're drowning, and anything after that is just more water on top. So it really doesn't matter how much water you're under. If you're drowning, you're drowning. So you may as well throw a few more on. So we had a 4th, and then long story short, we had the incredible privilege of adopting 2 children, a number of years apart. Our first daughter was 3 years old when we adopted her out of private foster care. Our most recent daughter was just adopted a year ago, almost to the day. And she was 13 when we adopted her. She's turned 14 now. So both incredible young ladies, amazing stories of redemption. And it's been, some of the most remarkable experiences of our whole lives has been able to be able to have the privilege to adopt. So it is a wild, big family now, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm not sure we're done yet. So we'll see.
Well, did you just say, I'm not sure we're done yet?
Yeah, I kind of doubt we are. Knowing my wife, I never know when I'll come home and there might be another child.
Wow.
So cool. I love that. You know, the funny fact, just a quick interjection. At our wedding, in the vows part, not just like a fun little other part, in the vows, my husband said, I vow to love you and our 27 kids. And
Yes. I like your husband already. That's awesome.
but
How
it's so funny because he's always been, now we'll have two. And so it was just funny that he said that. But I'm probably more the one who, I remember growing up, I was like, I want to have like 8 kids. I want to just rent a van. We can like paint a new like a mural on it every week. And just that, the community of a huge family. Do you feel like, how do you, and you know, so one thing I was talking about you to my husband, he said, how does he have enough love to give all those kids? How do you
Yeah.
answer that question?
Yeah, such a great question. When I had our firstborn as a son, my son Asher, and he's just a stud. And when a dad has a boy, it's just like that's just everything you dreamt of, you know. And from the time he was born, he was running wild in the woods and doing boy stuff, and we would wrestle and do all the fun guy stuff, camping and hiking. And I'm from Alaska, so lots of Alaskan adventures when we would go visit. And then I had a daughter, and that was like a game changer. I did not know. I didn't have any sisters. I have a stunning, amazing wife, but I did not know the power of 1-year-old eyelashes. And that little girl moved my heart in a way that I did not know was possible. I would go in because I needed to discipline her, and I would go out like disciplining myself. I would go in like needing to correct her, and I would come out apologizing as if I had done something wrong. And then I remember saying like, babe, if we have a third, like I can't imagine having another daughter. Like I don't know how I could have enough love. Like this little girl has captured my heart in a way that I didn't even know was possible. And our third child was another little girl. And I thought, my gosh, I am just done. It's over. And I didn't know how I could share my love with another little girl, but it's been astounding. As now I have 4 daughters and I have 2 sons. And it's like with each child comes the capacity to love more. And I cannot, even between my 2 adopted daughters and my 2 biological daughters, it's different. It's unique. We've had more history with some than others, but that the love capacity just increases with each child. I just think that there will never be a lack of love. It always comes down to choosing love, but there was always enough. There's always access to enough love for the people that God brings into our lives.
Wow, I love that. I completely understand what you're saying. I remember my husband and myself, we have 5 between the 2 of us. And so we have a very
Okay.
full household too. And I heard you mention in an interview one time that your minivan is a Max. And so we have a couple of vehicles, and one of them is a minivan. And I heard you say that when you guys purchased that, you felt like your ego got pushed to the side. And so my husband understands that feeling as well. But
Oh man.
it's so needed. It's so needed. It's so practical when you want to travel with the family to have a minivan. But I felt the same way. I remember when I was, pregnant with my second, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm so in love with my first. Like, how can I love my second as much as I love my first? And then your heart is just so big that it just loves everybody equally, but differently. And it just kind of gives you more of an understanding of God's heart for us, as unique ones, in his heart. And so I love your story. I love your heart and Holly's heart and how you guys have 6 beautiful children. Let's talk a little bit about ministry. First of all, how do you guys juggle time between ministry and being involved in all these different things and having 6 kids? What does that look like?
It's wild. It's
Wow.
definitely wild. Yes. But I definitely give all the credit to my wife. She is just astounding. And her capacity, her strength, her grace, her joy is the strength of our family. And she has just held these pieces together in a way that is absolutely astounding. She's truly my hero. The way that she has championed our family, the way she has poured into our local community, the way that she mentors, she's just constantly pouring her life out. And she's so full of joy. and we're just in this together. So the capacity, our strength of our whole lives has been our marriage. And I'm so grateful. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary last week. And it's been the strength of our lives. And so I think because of that, we've had the capacity to be able to have tremendous outward focus because of the strength that we've had in our marriage, which I give so much of that marriage strength credit to my wife as well. So she's the hero of the storyline. Yes, she's the hero.
I have a question. We're kind of jumping back a little bit, but I so want to know, because I was looking up a little bit about 1 Million Home and just some other things that, I've seen your name pop up on and advocate for. What do you say, and what would you say to people who maybe have that little something inside of them towards adoption or fostering? How did you make that jump, and how did you open up yourself enough to hear God speak to you and begin that journey of opening your heart? Because it seems like a huge stretch from someone. I've got 15 months old. I feel that even myself, but I wouldn't know what would be the steps to even take to open up my heart in that way.
Yeah. I think, not everyone will have the tremendous privilege of adopting. That will be a privilege that some have, and an honor, and not everybody will have that. But I think the key is that everybody has a part to play in the current crisis, both at a global orphan level and in the US in terms of the foster care. Right now in America, there are 100,000 children in the foster care system that have no hope of reunification, which the goal is always reunification with family. But 100,000, their parents' rights have been permanently terminated, and they have no close relative to be reunited with. And they are essentially orphans of the state. And, those kids, when they age out at 18 years old, 50% of them will be homeless and drug addicted by the end of their first year. All the statistics point to the massive number of people in incarceration and the huge, overwhelming percentage that had spent time in the foster care system. The foster care system has quickly become the largest place for human trafficking in America. And the issue, I think, is not necessarily would every family be willing to take in a foster child, because there is an act of obedience to that. There is a word of the Lord that needs to fuel that. But if every family would simply be willing to be a part of the equation, then there would not be a single orphan in America. And so much of the cycles of brokenness that are fed through the foster care system could be broken over the nation. Adoption is the solution to our abortion crisis. It's the solution to our fatherlessness and our motherlessness crisis. And some, like I said, it would only take 100,000 families. There are 330,000 churches in America. It would only take 100,000 families to take every one of those children in. And if another couple 100,000 families that would just support the families that take in children. In our community here, we are the first responders to the foster crisis on our island. And so we're often the first ones the state reaches out to. And if we can't take the child, we often find someone who can. But it's a whole wraparound. When we took our first foster child in, someone brought us a mattress because we needed another one. Someone brought us meals for a week straight. Someone took our other kids when we needed help. It was like the whole body's got to come around this issue. And I think the goal is this. The goal is 100% participation. This has to rise in the priority of the heart of the American church, or we're simply not living out a true gospel where the orphan and the widow is truly taken care of. And it won't be that everyone has to have this pressure, like, my gosh, my family can't handle that. I can't handle it financially. No. We all do it together. And there are easily 100,000 families with the grace and the right stage of life to take in a child. And there are hundreds of thousands of more families that could support those that do. And so I think the goal is 100% participation. And the thing that the American church needs to hear is it's so possible. It is so possible that there would not be an orphan in America, and that we could break these cycles right where they start. Go upriver and break these cycles right where they start, to see the next generation not be a fatherless generation. It's so possible.
Amen. I love that you guys are living out the gospel in so many ways as best as you can through your lives. Um, let's talk about YWAM. So I mentioned earlier that you've been with YWAM for 21 years, and we know that due to circumstances, a lot of things have looked different for a lot of people this year. So what does that look like for YWAM? I know you guys are, usually traveling all around the world to spread the gospel. But how has that changed in 2020?
Yeah, it's a great question. And mostly what has changed is our short-term missions. YWAM has about 1,600 operating locations in 190 nations that are permanent. So all of those just continue. And they've been able to be a huge part of the solution to their community's crisis. It's been much more localized, their impact and their reach. And they're, like I said, they're in 190 countries, so they're all over the world. But here in Kona, we are training and sending hundreds of students every 3 months and sending them to every continent and some of the least reached places in the world. But that, of course, had to stop in 2020 because of all that's going on. So
Right.
we've redirected actually, and we have about 350 students here right now, which is smaller than usual because of all of our restrictions. But we're sending all of them on a national tour across America, and we're doing 250 living room stops. So the backyards, living
I'm
rooms,
getting goosebumps.
small gatherings. And we have 25 teams that will scatter across the whole nation, Alaska included. And we'll just be meeting with small groups and living rooms, catalyzing simple obedience, worshiping and praying together. We just refuse to stop taking ground. And we saw it as a real divine reset to focus on America in this season and the great need for breakthrough in America. We are in a battle over the soul of the nation right now. And I think that it is localized around the heart and the mind of Generation Z and young millennials. So we're sending these teams out for the next 2 months to scatter across the nation to about 250 living rooms to activate, encourage, worship, and pray together, and call them into local impact to make a difference for the crisis of their own communities.
So cool.
Absolutely incredible. Let's talk a little bit about the Send. I know
Okay.
that you're very involved in the Send. The Send excites me so much. I love since the last Send in Florida. Truly, I have seen across the internet and all over a true war on inactiveness, especially among the younger generations. It is so powerful how God is stirring and moving in so many hearts and for what he's doing. I know that at the beginning of the year, you guys had the opportunity to do the Send in Brazil.
Yes, yeah, it was wild. Brazil was astounding. 3 simultaneous stadiums on the same day, and 100,000 missional commitments
Come
to
on.
local high schools, universities, the orphan crisis, the nations of the earth. And then a month later, we find ourselves in this unique situation. And so we, of course, had to reschedule some of what we had planned. We were planned to be in Kansas City in the fall, Argentina in the fall. And so we spent all of these last months in prayer, asking God for a fresh word, believing that our goal is not just to get back to normal. Normal's over. Our goal is to have more faith for 2021 than we had for 2020. This isn't about a recovery plan. This is about taking new ground, new territory. What is God doing to redeem everything that the enemy has tried to do? And how much more is he about to pour out his spirit on the nation and the nations of the earth? So we are heading with full confidence into 2021. That this is a significant year for America and for the nations of the earth. John 20:21, as the Father has sent me, so I send you. And we are praying for a divine, heavenly sending movement over America. So we are rumbling forward in faith for Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. We have a date, June 12th, which is kind of on the border of risky. But we have a backup plan. If we're unable to gather in the stadium, we will gather in the massive parking lot outside. And right now, the stadium is as well telling us, let's keep moving forward as if we're going to be able to do this. So June 12th, 2021, Arrowhead Stadium is the loudest stadium in the whole world. It's been the loudest decibel recording in a stadium is in Arrowhead. And we're gathering to believe for the largest sound of go that has ever been heard in history. And so we've set our sights on Kansas City with great faith. The promises and the prophecies over that stadium, over that city, over 20 years of day and night worship and prayer from IHOP Kansas City. The collaboration that's growing and forming around the nation where people just want the kingdom and they care far less about the credit. I think that this circumstances have served to break some of our ambition that is man-made ambition, human ambition, and has led us into an even greater zeal with godly ambition to believe that we must see America encounter Jesus again. And we must see a missions movement out of America like we have never seen before. It is time to see these lines of the Great Commission crossed that have never been crossed in history. Now is the time to do it. And in America, now is the time to wage war over the heart, the mind, and the soul of the next generation. We feel there's a 5-year window over America right now, and we are pressing with everything in us towards that. At the same time, we look at Argentina in the fall of 2021, and we have our eyes on Europe in early 2022, as well as another major campaign for America in 2022. So we're moving at full speed with full confidence that God is longing to move in America and release his presence in an unprecedented way.
You know, I know Chloe probably wants to ask a couple questions because I know there's so many things I would love to ask you as well. We do have a video on the send, and we're going to show that in just a second. But first, I want to say this because I know you were just saying that you really believe that there's about a 5-year window right now. What would you say, Andy? What do you feel like God is saying and doing specifically right now at the end of 2020 as we are approaching 2021?
Yeah. I think it's about courage right now. I think this last year, what the enemy has tried to add to the reality that we faced was to rob the church of courage. To get us to step back a little bit, hesitate a little bit, not sure if we can do this, do that. Everything's a little muffled, a little masked, right? And some of it's practical, but we cannot let spiritual hesitation in the door. We cannot let spiritual sitting back in the door. We have to stay full of courage. So I feel this transition between 2020 and 2021 is about gaining courage for the word of the Lord. We need to, like Jonathan and his armor bearer, it's time to take the Philistine garrison. It's time to take everything the enemy has tried to steal. It's an hour for Joshua and Caleb to go into the promised land. It's not a question of whether he's promised it. It's just a question of whether we'll believe the promise. And we need Joshua and Caleb's who will look at headlines, who will look at statistics and data and say, none of those matter. I have a word of the Lord, and he has promised us this land, and he has promised spiritual awakening. He has promised a 1 billion soul harvest. He's promised that every tribe, tongue, and nation will worship before the throne. And we need Joshua and Caleb to rise up in courage and move on the word of the Lord. I think that's the season we're in right now.
Amen. Amen.
So good.
Do you have any questions you want to ask before we go into the video?
I have one.
I knew it.
Just one. As a dad, as a husband, as a leader of so many things, an advocate for so many things, someone who's on a pedestal, someone that people look to, someone with undoubtedly so much pressure on his shoulders. What's your personal? I think, Rox, you might have actually asked me something like this in our interview, but I would so love to hear your heart on this. How do you personally cultivate an environment in your own heart, in your own walk that keeps your fire burning? You know, I've watched so much. I was listening to a podcast, and there's so many things. I'm not going to relate to you what you said, but so much was so impactful. But how have you cultivated that even through this year? What's that secret for you?
Yeah, such a great question, and I wish I had a more profound sounding answer. But I think at the end of the day, it is truly about a life of disciplined abiding, It's the word, it's simple life of prayer. We have built that both at a personal level, for my wife and I, as well as at a corporate level. We consider intercession a part of our work. We consider worship and prayer a part of our job. And it's a tremendous privilege, but we just refuse to do anything we do with a dry heart. We refuse to do anything we do out of just pure exhaustion with nothing left to give. We've got to be living out of overflow and abundance, which doesn't mean we're not tired and doesn't mean we don't, have stress and all those things. But we have sought to create a life that is living from the abundance of an abiding relationship with Jesus. And I just refuse to depart from that. We just got our elbows out on, like, the end of the day, intimacy with Jesus is everything. And I would say that's been the biggest thing, is that we're not in this for recognition. I'm a volunteer with the Send. I'm a volunteer with YWAM. We're not in this for our own names, our own recognition, our own anything. We do this out of overflow and abundance of love for Jesus and a revelation of his love for us. And that's just a privilege. It's just an immense privilege. So I think that's some of it. And secondly, I would just say, again, our marriage. I just think being able to have a marriage that is an oasis, which doesn't mean not working through, work through hard stuff, and all of that's normal. But we draw strength from our unity over our agreement that life is meant to be sacrificial, that life can be pleasure-filled and sacrificial at the same time. It can be full of joy and full of intimacy with each other, with our children, and with Jesus, and yet radically sacrificial at the same time. And there's no disunity in our marriage over that value. And that's been a huge strength for us, taking on all of this.
I love that. Thank you. Thanks for answering that. So good.
I love it. I love it. Let's go ahead and show this promo for the Send right now.
What started as a gathering has become a movement. 4 stadiums, tens of thousands of believers in person, millions online, uniting for Jesus, to declare a war on inaction, to go to everyone, everywhere, whether our neighbors or the nations. And we're just getting started. We can't stop until every believer has been activated to their missional calling, until all have heard the sound of go.
What if I told you in one generation we could see a new Jesus movement in our day? The greatest wave of missions in history, every campus reached with the gospel, and in America where every child has a permanent family. It's possible. The only thing stopping us is inaction. So as the Send, we are coming together to believe for a culture shift across the nation, to see every believer fully activated to their missional and evangelistic calling. But if we want to move a generation of believers from inaction to action, we need a movement, a tipping point of action, and it starts now. Here's how you can be a part. Activate now and adopt a mission field. Become a rep and help mobilize the nation. Join us at the Send online January 9th, 2021, and register for the Send on June 12th, 2021. Take all these next steps at thesend.org.
Oh my goodness, that just stirs me up to see that. I don't know about you, Chloe, but like that puts a fire in my bones. Andy, I know our time is running out. We so appreciate, like I said before, you taking time out of your crazy busy schedule to meet with us. We love your heart and we love the sacrifice that you and Holly are making for the kingdom of God and for all the lives that are being impacted as a result of that. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. How can our audience find out more about you, or if they want to financially support or support through prayer, find out more about your ministry?
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been such an honor to be with you, and just so grateful for people that are contending for breakthrough. And so thank you for the faith that you guys are carrying, what you're doing with this video podcast. Thank you for carrying these messages. And people can I mostly use Instagram in terms of social media. It's just Andy Byrd 1. And then, we have several websites that would just kind of would be the main things we're carrying. One is the send.org for everything with the send, and fireandfragrance.com with everything we do with Fire and Fragrance, and YWAMKona.com. So those are a lot of websites, but those would be the main three things that we're really pressing ahead on right now. But thank you so much. It's been such an honor to be with you, and such an honor just to share some of these things. And I have so much anticipation for what God's about to do in 2021.
We do too. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Andy. Guys, it's been a blast. This is so much fun. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, both of you, for taking time out today. I love it.
Good.
Thank you.
Guys, that's all the time we have today with Chloe Evans and Andy Byrd. Thank you so much for joining us today. That finishes off our year with the conversation for 2020. But we are so excited for what God is doing, and we're so excited for 2021. Until next year, stay blessed in Him, and we'll see you really soon. Hey guys, Roxanne Grace here. Thank you guys so much for watching Dream's YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single conversation or new music from Dream. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the like and notification buttons and share this video with a friend who needs to hear it. Oh, and don't forget, you can subscribe and listen to the conversation anywhere podcasts are available. Thanks for watching.